What's up, Trek Nation? Welcome back to Trek by Numbers on After the Snap. It's me, Tasha Pierce, and this week we're discussing the first episode of Star Trek Voyager's 5th season, Night. Night was directed by David Livingston and written by Brandon Braga and Joe Menosky. It originally aired on October 14th, 1998, with the in-universe stardate of 52081.2. In this episode, Voyager enters a vast region of space with no stars or systems, as the crew struggles to find ways to pass the time in this desolate part of space. Janeway reflects on the decision that stranded them in the Delta Quadrant. Night is an underrated episode of Star Trek Voyager. It's a slow-paced, character-driven episode that explores the psychological effects of isolation and loneliness. So the episode is also notable for its exploration in the relationship between Janeway and Chakotay. So if you're ready to explore what makes this one of Voyager's finest episodes and how the older I get, the more I can relate to Janeway, let's go. The episode opens with the first appearance of Tom Paris' Captain Proton holodeck program. Now, if you're a Voyager stan, you are completely aware of the significance of this momentous occasion. So Paris and Kim are playing a Captain Proton adventure on the holodeck, but their little party is rudely interrupted by the Fun Police, also known as the EMH, who informs them that they've gone over their allotted time. This leads to a heated argument between Paris and the Doctor about who gets to use the holodeck, and a power surge follows. But who cares, right? Because this is just one of many ways in which the crew's low morale is showing. They've been stuck in the void for 2 whole months with no stars or systems in sight. The theta radiation concentration is so high that they can't even see distant stars on the view screen, which is just a big black hole of despair. Janeway has been taking some time off in her quarters while Chakotay holds his weekly staff meeting. But let's face it, there's never anything new to report because everything is running smoothly on the ship, and they have all the supplies they need. The crew is just bored out of their minds, and they can't help but wonder why Janeway hasn't been joining them, and then Chakotay reassures them that she has the right to stay in her quarters and avoid the crew's miserable company if she wants. It's only a matter of time before someone cracks under the pressure. Maybe it'll be Paris, who's always been a bit of a loose cannon. Or maybe it'll be Kim, who's starting to look like he's about to lose his mind. Or maybe it'll be Janeway, who's clearly starting to feel the strain. When I first watched this episode back in the day, I couldn't help but think that Janeway was being pretty self-centered by not being on the bridge, modeling the behavior she wanted to see in her senior officers. And as I watched the episode again over time, that initial feeling never really faded. However, this time around, I saw something different. I actually found myself relating to Janeway. When Chakotay finally went to Janeway's quarters to confront her about her absence and the message it was sending to her crew, Janeway was clearly battling something. She was feeling the weight of the decision that led to them being stranded 70 light years from home. She had to make the decision to destroy the array that would have taken them home, and she knew that it was the right decision, but it didn't make it any easy. She was also feeling the guilt of the crew members who had died in the Delta Quadrant. She felt that that same decision led to their death, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she could have done more to save them. Now, Chakotay attempted to be supportive, but he didn't really understand what Janeway was going through. He told her to look on the bright side, that they were still alive, but that didn't make it any easier for her. She knew that they were still alive, but she also knew that they were a long way from home, and they would never be able to forget the crew members who had died along the way. Janeway's introspection was a powerful moment in this episode for me. It first and foremost showed the human side of Janeway, that side that was struggling with the weight of that decision and the guilt of the crew members she'd lost. It was also a reminder that the strongest leaders are still human and that they make mistakes. And Janeway's biggest mistake was placing the blame for the situation they're in on herself. She was faced with an impossible choice, and she made the right one. I do think it would have been interesting to see Janeway's introspection explored in more detail. We could have seen her talking to Tuvok about her guilt, or we could have seen her having a nightmare about the crew members who had died. When I was younger, I didn't notice the subtle hint indicating that Janeway was possibly struggling with depression. Now, with more life experience and suffering from anxiety and depression myself, I can appreciate how being in a desolate region of space could amplify those feelings. There are no distractions or disasters to occupy her mind. She's left alone with her thoughts, and those thoughts are not always pleasant. The idea that one should just shake those feelings off is absurd and unhelpful. Depression is a real illness and is not something that can be cured by simply pretending to be happy, faking it till you make it. It would have been helpful for the doctor to use his database to assist Janeway with her guilt, but unfortunately, this episode was limited to 45 minutes and had a whole different plot line to follow. Nonetheless, it is important to recognize that mental health struggles can affect anyone, even those in leadership positions, especially those in leadership positions, and it is essential to have support and resources when they're needed. So this episode of Voyager really shines a light on the emotional turmoil that the entire crew is going through. It's not just Janeway who is struggling with depression, anxiety, and a sense of being lost in the vast expanse of the void. Neelix, one of the most jovial and outgoing members of the crew, is also shown having anxiety attacks in several scenes. This highlights the fact that even those who seem the most resilient can be deeply affected by the psychological toll of prolonged isolation and confinement in deep space. The fact that the crew was only 2 months into what's estimated to be a 2-year journey through this desolate region of space is a cause for great concern when it comes to the mental health of everyone on board. The lack of stimulation and novelty, combined with the constant pressure of being far from home, can be a breeding ground for mental health issues. It's a stark reminder of the importance of psychological support and resources for long-term space missions. And let's face it, Voyager proves that in Starfleet, any mission can become long-term in an instant. Now, if you can't tell, I'm really passionate about the importance of taking care of our mental health, so I tend to bring it up a lot. But before I give my rating for this episode, I'm going to touch on a few other aspects that stood out to me, besides the mental health aspects of this episode. In the episode, the director cleverly used horror elements to add tension to the plot. It was a nice touch to see the crew of Voyager dealing with a new alien species in a way that added to the overall mood of this episode. I appreciated how the horror beats were not just there for shock value, but they were actually a misdirect that helped build up the reveal of the true intentions of the seemingly benevolent alien species, which later came to Voyager's aid. It was a good example of how effective storytelling can keep an audience on their toes and create a more immersive viewing experience. One of the wounded aliens native to the void remained in Voyager's sickbay after their little boarding party resulted in a shootout. Now, the species that came to Voyager's aid are the Malon. Imk, the Malon shipmaster, arrives on Voyager, but due to the theta radiation he's covered in, they keep him behind a force field until the biofilter can screen him. So this explains where the theta radiation that is blocking the view of even distant stars in the void is coming from. Imk is literally crawling in it. So Imk proposes to take Voyager to a spatial vortex that's going to lead them out of the void faster, but only if they give him the alien in their sickbay. Now, the alien in sickbay is native to the void, so they're photosensitive. They're made to live in these dark conditions. But the Malon dumping their waste is killing them. So they attack Voyager, mistaking them for the Malon's allies, and they pleaded for Janeway's help. Instead of turning the alien over to Imk, Voyager beams it back to its own people. Janeway then offers Imk a way to refine their warp technology so it won't emit such noxious waste. Imk only pretends to be interested because, you see, he makes money from the dumping. He don't want others to know what he's doing. The spatial vortex is his little secret, and he wants to keep it that way. Janeway decides that they need to destroy the vortex, but she doesn't want her crew to have to live with the repercussions of her decision again. So she plans to stay behind in a shuttlecraft and destroy the vortex after Voyager safely passes through. But the crew mutinies and refuses to let her go. Now, it's here that Janeway realizes her crew sees themselves as stuck with her, not because of her. This crew is now a family, and they would never abandon anyone for any reason. They come up with a new plan: destroy the vortex as they go through it. Torres boosts the aft shields, and Tuvok sets torpedoes to delay detonation. As they make their way through the vortex, Imk attacks. but the aliens come to the rescue and destroy his ship. Voyager is damaged during all this, but they ride the shockwave of the torpedo detonation through the vortex and come out on the other side, back among the stars. Night is a great episode that explores, among other things, the psychological challenges of long-term space travel. I think the writing conveyed the crew's feelings of isolation, confinement, stress, anxiety, and depression. I've already sung the praises of the directing, and the actors really delivered. I also enjoyed the intro to the Captain Proton holodeck program. It was fun and campy and a diversion that helped us get broken into the tension of the episode. Additionally, the introduction of I can't say this man's name, Imp's species, the Malon, foreshadows their appearance in future episodes. So I was wowed this time by what I missed in all my other viewings of Night, and I rate this one an A-. But what did you think of Voyager Season 5, Episode 1? Tell me about it in the comments with the hashtag #TrekByNumbers if you'd like me to share your comment in a future episode. Speaking of future episodes, Night was the final Season 5, Episode 1. So we're moving on to another set of episodes. The season selected this time was 4. The episode selected is 13. Wow. So the next series of Trek by Numbers will have 5 episodes, starting with Enterprise's United. And wouldn't you know it, it's the second part of a 3-part story. In it, a Marauder ship threatens to destabilize the region. Archer has a plan to capture it, but it'll mean unifying the Andorians, Tellarites, and Vulcans. Sounds fantastic. Can't wait to dive into it. And if you're enjoying Trek by Numbers, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. Also, make sure your notifications are in the on position so you won't miss an upload or a live stream. And if you're able to show some financial support, slide me a super thank, or become a member like these stars in the vast darkness of space. That's it, that's all. Thanks for joining me this week. I hope to see you in the next video. Live long and prosper. Peace.